From the character on the show that parodies Tate to what the show might have in store next, here's what happened when Andrew Tate became South Park's next target. South Park's 26th season may have been short, but it wasn't boring. Over the past 2 decades, the animated comedy show has made a name for itself thanks to its crude humor and its willingness to make fun of everybody, from beloved celebrities to controversial internet figures such as Andrew Tate. In the season finale of season 26, aptly titled Spring Break, South Park announced that Andrew Tate was fair game with a hilarious takedown. In the animated show, a character named Alonzo Fineschi is introduced. While the name Andrew Tate isn't mentioned at all, there's absolutely no doubt that this new character is a parody of the controversial internet personality. Just by looking at the character, you can see that this man is definitely Tate, even if they're calling him something different on the show. If you've seen a photo of Tate before, all you need to do is take one look at this Alonzo Fineschi and see the bald head, always present cigar, and just overall appearance to know who the character is parodying. And then there's the actual storyline of the show that comes into play, and hilariously makes fun of Tate. In the show, Alonzo Fineschi is introduced to the character Randy Marsh. When Alonzo pulls a gun on Randy, the latter tries to desperately show him that he's just trying to do the right thing. Then, Randy speaks as if he's a Tate disciple, saying, "I'm just trying to combat the messages that the liberal left is putting out to young men about their male instincts being toxic."
Look, I'm just trying to combat the messages that the liberal left is putting out to young men about their male instincts being toxic.
"I'm trying to show my son and his nerdy little friend what a real party is because society wants them to be ashamed of their masculine natures."
You know, I'm trying to show my son and his nerdy little friend what a real party is because society wants them to be ashamed of their masculine natures.
Randy has taken it upon himself to show these kids how they should act and how they should party. When Alonzo Fineschi hears this, he decides to help and says he's gonna call some friends to really start a party.
I will call some friends.
And this is where South Park really hits Tate. Later in the show, when police burst into the place where the party is happening, they see Alonzo Fineschi and shout that he's a Romanian sex trafficker.
That's Alonzo Fineschi, the Romanian sex trafficker!
Anyone who's heard any recent news about Andrew Tate knows about everything that's happening to him in Romania. The police arrested him for human trafficking, and for the past few months, Tate has been in custody in jail alongside his brother. Tate has consistently denied these charges and has only recently been let out of jail and put under house arrest. So, while the character Alonzo Fineschi is not completely like Tate, he's similar to him enough that viewers really took notice. As the show wraps up, Alonzo Fineschi manages to flee the scene after getting into a gunfight with the police, perhaps hinting that he will be seen again in some capacity in the later seasons. After all, South Park loves parodying celebrity figures. The more controversial, the better. South Park has never been one to shy away from these controversial people, and fans have loved seeing what they have to say about timely news stories, people, and events. Very rarely can a scripted show accurately talk about timely news stories, as trends and breaking news events can quickly come and go before the show can even be released, thanks to trending stories on the internet. However, South Park has remained above the fray in this regard. Introducing an Andrew Tate character in the show has, for the most part, delighted fans. After all, if anyone will be able to successfully make fun of the toxic masculinity coach, it's South Park. But that doesn't mean that everyone was impressed with the episode. Some fans felt like the writers of the show almost went too easy on Tate. After all, this is a man being accused of trafficking humans, alongside other allegations. So, to have the character Alonzo Fineschi not have more insults thrown at him seems odd to many fans. This is South Park we're talking about. When has the show ever held back? This slight restraint could mean they're setting up to make fun of the character some more in the 27th season. Or it could mean the show's desire to try to steer clear of any time-friendly storylines, something they've been more aware of in recent years than before. When they've touched on recent news, such as Tate's arrest, they've been more vague and generic about it so that they don't say anything that isn't relevant any longer. But in doing so, they may miss out on writing some real insults or zingers. Even though some fans wished they would have done more, most people loved that South Park parodied Andrew Tate, as he's so easy to make fun of. One person who didn't care for this so much? Andrew Tate himself. Tate quickly responded to the show's parody of himself with an odd tweet saying, "When I will be proven innocent, I look forward to help create the greatest South Park episode of all time." He then tweeted after this saying, "I met one of my lifelong heroes, Randy Marsh." A rather interesting remark, as he doesn't completely bash the show, and the show called him a sex trafficker. But since Tate's release from jail, he's been on house arrest and posting odd videos of himself pacing with a cigar. So he might not be thinking clearly about the show with everything else he's got going on in his life. If South Park continues to rail against Tate, and many fans are hoping they do just that, then we might hear more from Tate about what he really thinks about the show. A show he clearly was a fan of at one point in his life, likely before they parodied him. The next season may then have the character of Alonzo Fineschi return in some capacity. There's really no telling what the writers and creators of South Park will do in the future, or who they'll decide to parody. Sometimes they really go after public figures for episodes or seasons with no end in sight. Other times, they'll only parody them for one episode. Tate wasn't the only public figure made fun of this season. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle also were parodied in the show, leading to more than a few headlines that insinuated the couple wanted to sue the show for making fun of them, something that the couple's sources proclaimed was completely false.
You see, my wife and I are totally like, you should write a book because your family like stupid, and then so are like journalists. So you hate journalists. That's right. And now you wrote a book that reports on the lives of the royal family. Right.
In the show, South Park made fun of the couple for saying that they desperately want some privacy, all while doing everything they can to get more public attention. In the next season, we might get to see more opportunities for the writers to make fun of Tate, as well as Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. After all, King Charles III is set to have his coronation soon, and now that Prince Harry is returning to the coronation without his wife, there's surely lots of comedic material to go around for the writers. But it really just depends on how timely they want their stories to be. Tate's character might have some more storylines, as I'm sure Tate himself will continue to be in the news as he attempts to fight these charges on human trafficking. But we have others to think of. There are so many people that South Park could make fun of in this day and age. Plus, let's not forget that the United States has a presidential election coming up in 2024, and more candidates will likely start jumping into the race. The writers at South Park could do a lot with the anticipated news stories that will arise in the near future, all about who could become president next. Donald Trump's consistent legal headlines and his ongoing war with Florida Governor Ron DeSantis could be a whole season in itself. And then there's the Russia and Ukraine war that is ongoing. South Park wasn't scared to make fun of Vladimir Putin when the war began, and there's no indication that they're scared to make fun of him now. While this last season was light on war-related storylines compared to the previous seasons, that doesn't mean that the writers won't revisit this material again. It'll be interesting to see whether South Park returns to storylines that are very timely, or if they stick to parodying characters such as Andrew Tate that will likely continue to make headlines in the near future. Regardless of their plans, the writers will continue to go after public figures like Tate. So, from who the show could make fun of in the new season, to what season 26 parody of Tate contained, this was what happened when Andrew Tate became South Park's target.